Did you notice the question that Jesus asked the disciples in today's gospel reading? Jesus asked this question with great sadness and great disappointment about his disciples, what they're talking about. Now, today's gospel reading comes out of the 9th chapter of Mark, verses 30 to 37. And what we want to look at tonight, beginning with verse 33 of the 9th chapter of Mark, let's take a look. It says in verse 33, they came to Capernaum, that's third person plural, that's the reference to the disciples. The disciples came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, Jesus began to ask him, what were you arguing about on the way? Now, it turns out to be Jesus already knows what they were arguing about, but he asked them this question because he wants the disciples to take ownership of what they were talking about. Jesus is very disappointed in his disciples. He's going to build his church and these hand-picked 12, and they're bringing up a subject that only leads to division and confusion and angst and anger. Let's take a look at verse 34 to find out what they were talking about on the way to Capernaum. Verse 34. Now that opening sentence is powerful. But they, the disciples, remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. They took the Fifth Amendment. They remained silent. It wasn't to postpone their innocence, but rather to postpone their guilt, because they realized what they were doing wrong. Jesus is saying to his disciples, look, whenever you try to make yourself out to be great, the greatest among you, around those around you, you do so by making everyone else feel small and little. You know anyone in your life who likes to be superior? You might know someone at work who likes to strut around like a peacock, like they're superior, and whenever that happens, they make those around them feel small. I can prove how good I am by showing everyone else how bad you are. I can prove the value of my assets by showing everyone else how many faults you have. You know, the old saying is, when you point your finger at someone else, you have three fingers pointing back at you. Jesus was so disappointed in his disciples. His original 12, they're trying to figure out who's the greatest. Jesus said, don't worry about who's the greatest. Just do your job in a great way. That's all I ask. Because trying to figure out who's the greatest just leads to animosity and division. We're going to watch a little video that I think describes very well what happens when you believe you're above and better than someone else. And typically when you do that, that's usually not the case. Let's take a look at this video.
Our young neighbor doesn't know how to get her clothes clean. Bill read the paper and didn't say a word. Every time her new neighbor hung her laundry to dry, Mary would make the same comments. Bill continued to say nothing. A few weeks later, Mary was surprised to look out her window and see a nice, fresh, and clean row of wash hung out to dry. In surprise, she said to her husband, "Look, Bill, she finally knows how to clean her laundry." "I wonder what she learned," Mary asked. Bill replied, "Honey, I might have an answer for you." "Really?" Mary said. "Yes, I do," Bill said. "I got up early this morning and washed our windows. I guess we finally learned how to wash the windows." "What window are you looking out of?" There's so much good in the worst of us, and so much bad in the best of us, that it hardly becomes any of us to talk about the rest of us. Edward Wallace Hoke. We would be wise to focus on our own laundry before we worry about someone else's.
That really turns out to be the essence and the meaning of tonight's gospel reading. The disciples are trying to figure out who's the greatest, and Jesus saying it doesn't matter. Don't worry about who's the greatest. As long as you do your job of being a disciple the best you can, then for me, you are the greatest. Who's the most important person in our church tonight? The answer is pretty clear. We're all equally important. As long as we're trying to be the best Christian, the best human being, the best person we can, then we are very important in the kingdom of God. But when we try to make ourselves out to be more important than everyone else, that just doesn't work, because we belittle those around us. So the next time you look out your window and you see the neighbor just might have some dirty laundry, they have a dirty car, maybe the problem is their car isn't dirty, their laundry isn't dirty. Maybe the problem is your windows.